Welcome to Martian Mixed Martial Arts.
Wow. Wouldn't it be crazy if the aliens manufactured you to be a mixed martial arts fighter? They're like, let's see if we could just turn this
I'm
dude
sure
into a bad
I'm sure
motherfucker."
if it would have happened, I would have been much better than this.
Much better than this. You're the fucking champion. What are you
Yeah,
talking
but
about?
if I would be alien manufacturer, I would be Superman.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, aliens, Martians, any conscious being tuning into the podcast. I welcome you to episode 41 of Martian Mixed Martial Arts. This week we will be recapping the UFC Buenos Aires, Argentina card that went down this past weekend and previewing the UFC Fight Night 141 Curtis Blades versus Francis Ngannou happening in Beijing, China this Saturday morning. Just a quick disclaimer, I did not have enough time this week to study this card as in-depthly as I would have liked. I have a good idea about the majority of the fighters on the card, but I will admit there's about 6 fighters on the card, which I have not gotten the chance to do some tape on, so I'm kind of just going to wiki cap them this week. I'm definitely not going to have as much, in-depth analysis and prediction as I do the other weeks, for a few reasons. This card starts at 3:15 a.m. on Saturday morning. I'm not going to be waking up to watch this card that early. Even the main card starts at 6:30 a.m. So I don't even think I'll wake up that early to, watch the main card and try to get some live bets in. I think I'll just watch the card when I wake up, the morning of, maybe try to avoid the social media just to get the results in live time too. But, there's no shame in missing a few UFC cards a year, especially when they're at this time of the night. When I've missed a few of them when I had things to do on Saturday night, but I feel no shame about this one, missing it around 3 in the morning my time. But congratulations to all you Europeaners and people around the world who actually get to watch a fight card at a normal time. That's good for you. I guess it would start around 9:15 a.m. for most Europeaners, and the main card would actually start around noon, so it's a lot better for you guys who usually watch the fights around in the middle of the night, like I would have to this time. But I don't have that resiliency to stay up all night to watch these fights. So starting off recapping the UFC Argentina card that happened this past weekend, honestly, pretty good card. It looked a little lackluster, on paper, and it also looked pretty lackluster starting the evening off. Started the evening off with 4 straight decisions. So Nadan Normandi defeated Anderson dos Santos with a decision. That was a very, very predictable outcome to this fight. Dos Santos just not looking too tenacious in there. Nadan Normandi is looking pretty sharp as usual. In the next fight, we had Jesus Pinedo defeat Devin Powell in the decision. Didn't expect this one to go to the cards, but it did. Pinedo looked a little also lacking tenacity. He was able to take Powell down, catch a bunch of his kicks, and kick his legs pretty hard in this one. But he just unfortunately didn't chase that finish too well, and I was looking for a safe and secure win in his first UFC fight, and no shame there. He beat a tough guy in Devin Powell. He probably could have gassed himself out if he tried to knock him out too, because Devin Powell's really tough. So Pinedo looks pretty good though, for sure. Next fight, also a fighter looking very good, is Lariano Staropoli defeating Hector Aldana by decision. Staropoli looked terrible on tape. People were making fun of him for how awkward and unskilled he looked coming into this fight. Almost everybody and their mom was betting on Hector Aldana in this one. He opened as a 2-1 underdog and was closed as the favorite, so huge line movement coming in Aldana, and Aldana just looked terrible. The first round of this fight was an absolute banger. These guys were swinging like crazy. And luckily I was able to hit, I think, a live bet I think so. I think I hit a live bet. Yeah. This is the first fight on the Fox Sports One prelims. Luckily, so I did live bet the fight goes the distance because I knew that these guys weren't going to keep that pace up. They were going to tire out big time after that big first round. They both probably threw like 70 or 80 punches in that first round. So they both did, slow down significantly, but Sarapoli looking pretty much unrecognizable from pre-fight tape and looked much, much improved. So props to him and Aldana, man. That dude sucks. Can't believe a lot of us bet on him. Next fight, Austin Arnett defeated Humberto Bande. Speaking of fighters who suck, Bande, man, holy shit. We had 2 fights in the UFC leading up to this one. Both of them ended in like 30 seconds, losing one and winning one. So a lot of people, thought that this fight was going to go exactly the same, but shit, man, Humberto Bande being a minus 250 favorite is just embarrassing. After this fight, man, he looked terrible. He gassed out after 1 round. Austin Arnett dug deep. He got that victory in the latter rounds, pulled off the decision. Not the most exciting fight, but like I said, Arnett did dig deep and come out with the win in this one. So congrats to him, and he looked pretty improved too. I believe that was his first UFC win. Next fight, we had Alexandre Pantoja defeat Oka Sasaki. Oka Sasaki is like a live by or die by rear naked choke guy. He either wins by rear naked choke or loses by it. And tonight Saturday night he lost by it. Alexandre Pantoja is just quickly becoming one of the best. Flyweight is kind of obsolete now, but he's a very, very high level competitor. I'm sure he'll have a massive success at 135 when he chooses to move up. He's got crisp striking, great ground game, good subs. So for sure Pantoja is going to be a guy to look out for at bantamweight. Next fight, we have Michel Pereira blasted Bartosz Fabinski and guillotined him in 1 minute into the first round. Pereira just bombed Fabinski with a massive right hand, put him on his ass, and then went for a very tight guillotine choke and got the finish. Man, a lot of people were expecting Fabinski to win this one. There was some pretty steep live movement, bringing him down from like plus 260 to plus 130. I hopped in on him a little bit, but was ultimately disappointed by this one. But man, the tractor, man, this dude's like 38 years old. He's on an 8-fight win streak. He's an absolute fucking tank. So respect to that dude. He shows up every time, and he ended up getting down to minus 150. So a lot of people were jumping in on that 2-1 on Fabinski, but then there was so much line movement that Pereira ended up getting a good price on him too. So if anybody hopped in on that price, the day before on Pereira, congrats to you getting a really good price on him. Next fight, another example of I think there was a little bit of circle jerk on this card, which I mean by when someone watches an underdog and they pick that underdog like Fabinski or Hector Aldana or Poliana Botelho. Everyone was talking about these 3 all week. Everyone was betting on them. They're only some pretty sharp individuals were going against the grain in this one and betting on Calvillo, Pereira, or Staropoli, because like I said, there's a lot of discussion amongst people betting on these 3 underdogs, but Botelho shit the bed just like the Fabinski and Aldana did. Calvillo came out looking great, was taking Botelho down, beating her up on the ground, and ended up cinching up a pretty nasty bulldog choke in this one. A lot of submissions in this one. I want to say 4, yeah, that's pretty good. 3 knockouts, 4 submissions, 4 decisions. So a little bit of everything on this card. And so Calvillo just looking really great coming off of her suspension and everything. She's back, and even though she missed weight, she looked good. So who the hell knows what she's going to do with her 115, 125. Obviously, she had to fly down to Argentina. There's a lot of variables in play, and hopefully she can make 115 again in her next fight. Next fight, we had Marlon Vera defeat Guido Canetti by rear naked choke in the second round. Guido Canetti came out in this one looking good, man. He hurt Marlon Vera in the first round. He won the first round. I think Vera opened to like minus 125 after the second round, so the odds makers didn't realize that Kennedy, didn't have this win in the bag yet. I thought this one was going to go to the decision. I thought Kennedy was going to win it, so I lost a little bit on the live betting in this one. And Marlon Vera ultimately put Guido Kennedy away. He was landing some fucking vicious knees, man. I was screaming my lungs out at these knees. He was grabbing the back of the head and just leading his head right into his knee. Just dirty tie clinch from Marlon Vera. Ended up dropping Kennedy, and then Marlon Vera went for the choke and ended up finishing him that way. So really good comeback from Marlon Vera. He starts really slow in all of his fights, but he came back in this one really strong and got the finish. So, Guido Kennedy would have been great to see him get a win in his home country of Argentina, but unfortunately that didn't really pan out. And 8-4. 38 years old at bantamweight, man. It's gonna be tough to see Kennedy getting any more wins in the UFC after this. Next fight, we had Ian Heinisch defeat Cesar Freire in a decision. Ian Heinisch making his UFC debut in this one. Cesar Freire was the favorite in this one. He looked, pretty lackluster from the jump. Maybe he won the first round, but I think that Ian Heinisch, he got some takedowns in the first round. Ian Heinisch was going for submissions in the first round. Man, Ian Heinisch was attempting his best submission attempts at Cesar Freire, a world-class black belt. He was going for an arm bar. He was going for all types of stuff, man. And they didn't look that close. They didn't look that, pathetic. It looked like he had his arm for a little bit. Freire was definitely too complacent in there. Heinisch was fucking game, man. I like this dude a lot. Not only did he try to submit him in round one, that was the closest round out of all of them. He took over this fight in the latter rounds. I believe he won rounds 2 and 3. He was a huge live dog in this one. I won on him, and I think the decision as well. So, super high on Ian Heinisch right now. He really dug deep and got that victory. He came in on short notice against a proven UFC guy. And, got his first win in a pretty hard-fought decision. So, I'm a big fan of Ian Heinisch right now. Next fight, another big fan of this guy, Johnny Walker defeating Khalil Roundtree by elbow knockout 2 minutes into the first round. Man, Johnny Walker just coming out here looking confident as fuck, man. He took a leg kick from Roundtree and rubbed his leg and mocked Roundtree for how soft it was. And man, after I saw that, I should have, sometimes guys showboat out of insecurity, but this guy was showboating out of full confidence, man. He knew he had this one. He was a little bit of an underdog coming into this one. So there was money coming in on him all week. He opened up as a pretty big underdog and closed as a moderate underdog. So Johnny Walker just getting that clinch, man, and landing knees and elbows and just massive elbows to put Khalil Roundtree out, man. Just a very, very impressive knockout. And like I said, that he's in there against a guy who just flatlined a world kickboxing champion. He's out there with a guy who has got not more MMA experience than him, a lot more UFC experience than him, and he just went in there and smoked him like nothing. So Johnny Walker, man, is something to look out for at UFC at the 205-pound division. Next fight, Ricardo Lamas put a beat down on Darren Elkins. Man, this fight, man, some Darren Elkins fights are hard to watch, and he did have a few comebacks in a few of them, like the Michael Johnson and Mirsad Bektik, where he was absolutely getting his ass handed to him and came back and won those two fights. But man, this one was pretty brutal to watch. Luckily, Keith Peterson had a little bit of mercy and stopped this fight around 14 minutes into it. A lot of referees would have let that keep going, knowing who Darren Elkins was and knowing how he's tough as shit. And he probably wouldn't have stopped moving after any of these shots. But, man, he was eating some absolutely massive punches from Ricardo Lamas on the ground and pound. Ricardo Lamas just looked fucking sharp in this one, man. Was landing head kicks. His wrestling was on point. His level changes were good. His control on the ground, his ground and pound, his striking, everything, man. It looked like the world champion contender Lamas that we've seen before. And it also came out that he developed a blood clot in his leg from sitting so long on the flight to Argentina. So there was actually he had a lot in jeopardy in this one. possibly injuring himself, getting a blood clot in his leg. Who even knows what that would have resulted in if it actually got worse in the fight. But he didn't give a fuck about any of that and just came out there and kicked some ass. So Ricardo Lamas, props to him, man. Just great performance. He somehow closes like a moderate favorite in this one, -160, I think. So anybody who hopped in on that price, congrats to you. I think I got a little bit of Ricardo to inside the distance. I was also on his decision, so wasn't really too pleased it didn't go to decision, but oh well, still won a little bit on his inside the distance. In the next fight we had in the main event, Santiago Ponzinibbio defeating Neil Magny by TKO or in the 4th round. Just a totally outclassing performance in this one from Santiago Ponzinibbio. From the jump, he was landing stinging jabs, or it looked like he crushed Magny's orbital bone in the first minute of the fight. Magny was holding his eye. He was blasting him with leg kicks, and Neil Magny could barely walk. And then after 15, 17 minutes of just straight punishment with jabs and leg kicks, eventually Ponzinibbio landed a huge bomb and rocked Magny, and Magny's legs just gave out from under him, had nothing left in him, and he face planted on the canvas, and that was enough to get the stoppage. Ponzinibbio probably could have piled a combination together on much earlier into the fight and finished it just maybe 3 leg kicks in a row or something like that. He wouldn't have been able to stand up. Herb Dean, man, just I don't understand the stoppage in this one, man. This dude was just getting chewed the fuck up, man. He was holding his eye when he was getting punched. His legs were getting kicked out from underneath him. He was struggling to get back from his feet, man. Neil Magny's had a few comebacks in his time, but man, this was again a pretty brutal stoppage. He took way too much punishment in this one. I wouldn't have mind seeing that one stopped a lot earlier. But Ponzinibbio, regardless, looking pretty legit. I mean, some people were saying, man, Santiago Ponzinibbio is legit. I'm like, did you not fucking know that when he beat Mike Perry, and when he's on like a 6-fight win streak, 7-fight win streak. He's beaten tons of good guys at 170, and they're like, man, he's legit. Like, dude, no shit. He's 4 knockouts, 3 decisions, and a 7-fight win streak in the past 3 years. So Ponzinibbio like to see him get a top 5 opponent next. I don't know who I'm thinking of at that. Maybe the winner of Usman and RDA. If RDA wins that, I don't know. Usman might jump up a little bit. Yeah, I think Usman and Ponzinibbio were supposed to fight back in Chile, I think, earlier this year, but Ponzinibbio got hurt, so I wouldn't mind seeing that fight rebooked. But that being said, like I said, really great card. It was 4 decisions in a row, then 4 subs in a row, and then 4 knockouts in a row. I think maybe 1 decision was thrown in there. Let me check this again. But yeah, like I said, just a little bit of everything in this fight night. Really liked it. It had so we 4 decisions, 4 subs, 1 decision, 3 knockouts. So so like I said, it was I've never seen a card like that broken down into decisions, subs, and knockouts. But that's enough for this card. We're going to be transitioning to the UFC Beijing, China event. Like I said, another disclaimer, I have not gotten enough time to study the fights in this one. I only have a loose idea of a lot of these fighters. I know a decent amount about a lot of the fighters, but I definitely don't know much about a good 5 or 6 fighters on this card. So I will not have as much in-depth analysis and prediction for this one, so don't take me at my word. For a lot of these ones, usually I would like to study every fighter who I don't know on the card and make a more accurate prediction. But like I said, I just didn't have time with it being a holiday in America this week. And man, I'm telling you, I watch a lot of my tape while I'm in school, while I'm sitting in college doing nothing. Listening to lectures. I'll just throw fights on. But I wasn't in school this week, so didn't have time to tape the fights, and lacked a little bit of motivation considering I wasn't gonna watch this one live. So just being honest about that one. We're gonna start things off in the 135-pound division. Luis Smolka coming back to the UFC, who is fit 14-5, taking on Sumajeri, fighting out of China, who is 11-3. So Luis Smolka opened up in this one as a -365 favorite. Holy shit. Sumajeri +265. And now Luis Smolka is -200. Sumajeri is +170. So Sumajari is one of the guys who I have not gotten a chance to tape that much. He's a Chinese fighter, and Luis Smolka was brought in on short notice to come back in this one. But just a quick glance, Sumajari's recent opponents are bad, man. They're fighting their first fight, or they have two fights, 3 fights, 4 fights, and he's lost to a couple. He's lost to a guy with a 4-0 record, with 11-4 record, 11-10 record. So not really looking too good, having a couple losses in this low level competition that he's fought. But he looks like a can crusher, and he's fighting a pretty legit Testament guy in Luis Smolka. Luis Smolka has got some, pretty good finishing power. He's got good chokes. He's even got a little bit of power on the feet for being a flyweight. He's been in the UFC a lot before. He was at 1.5-1 in the UFC, but then went on a 4-fight losing streak, lost 4 in a row, and then was cut after he went 5-5. But fighting in the highest level competition, Marino, Borg, Tim Elliott, and Mateus Nicolau. He also had I believe he was an alcoholic while he was in the UFC last time. Really struggled with that, so he got cut and he won 3 fights by finish, and now he's back in the UFC on short notice. So I think this is going to be a good spot for Luis Smolka to come back and get a win. But interesting enough, this is just fucking frustrating. Jared Brooks pointed the same thing out on Twitter. He's a flyweight, a very legitimate flyweight. He was 2-2 in the UFC, won his most recent fight, and he said, "What the hell are you bringing this bum back in the UFC for?" I'm better than this guy. I would beat this guy. I was cut from flyweight, not given a chance to fight at 135, and just because they needed a short notice guy, they call up Smolka and bring him back, even though he really doesn't deserve it. I agree 100%, man. There's no justification for having him back in the UFC after winning 3 regional fights over low-level competition, while you just cut 10 fucking dudes who deserve to be on the roster. So, really disappointing decision from the UFC there. Moving on to the next fight, we have John Phillips, who is 21-7, taking on Kevin Holland, who is 13-4. This fight is going down in the middleweight division. We have this one open up. Kevin Holland open up as -270, John Phillips +190. Right now, Kevin Holland is somehow a -465 favorite. John Phillips up to +370. Man, if I see this opening line, I say, oh, Kevin Holland -270 seems about right. Not gonna bet him, because I could never trust this guy at anything more than 270. Quite frankly, I wouldn't trust him at anything more than -200. But some crazy motherfuckers out there are betting Kevin Holland all the way down to -465. I don't get it, man. This guy's 0-1 in the UFC. He didn't really earn a UFC contract according to Dana White. He was brought in on short notice. He looked, decent in the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series. He had some pretty good striking in that fight, but nothing too crazy. I actually, got hit with a few punches from Will Santiago, who was a 6-1 underdog, and also he has a few losses on his record. His ground game is relatively unknown. He was taken down against Thiago Santos. Luckily, he had some good ground and pound defense. John Phillips is not much of a submission threat. He's more of a knockout type of guy. So I think this fight does favor Holland, because he will be the more technical striker in there. But John Phillips, throws with some power. He's gotten 18 or 19 knockouts out of his 21 wins. He's struggled in the UFC so far, losing his last fight to Charles Byrd, was just taken down, controlled, and choked in that one. He had absolutely no offense in that one, and looked, his sub defense didn't look that great either. Didn't look like he had much tenacity to get back to the feet. So Kevin Holland, I'll expect this one to be contested on the feet, and Kevin Holland win a decision, playing it safe, not catching any bombs from John Phillips. A lot of people thinking Kevin Holland can finish this one, but man, he doesn't really have the knockout power over high level guys. I think, honestly, he has a lot of wins, or a few wins by decision. I mean, he does have a lot of regional knockouts. Oh, regional knockouts over Jeff Neal. That one's pretty impressive. I think I remember watching that fight. Round 3, but that fight was a pretty grueling fight. So I don't think that necessarily that this one will be a finish, but I definitely would have to favor Kevin Holland. Next fight in the women's 115 strawweight division, we have Zion Yan taking on Suri Kondo. Yan is 9-1. Kondo is 6-1. Looking over at bestfightodds.com, Zayuan opened up -215. Kondo +165. This is an instance when I can see where you're going to bet the favorite a little more. -215 wasn't really steep enough for Yan in this one. I really imagine that she will have an easy time winning this one. She's picked up 2 wins in the UFC so far, beating Kaylin Curran and Viviana Pereira. Two, legitimate contenders. Viviana Pereira was, 13-1 when they fought too. So, Zayuan is certainly legit. She's got a good amount of power and really good aggression from her too. There's a few Chinese women on this card who really fucking bring it. I think she even brings it more than Zhang does, who is also a very good pressure forward fighter. But Kondo, man, she's just awkward. She's really awkward. I think she comes from like a karate background, and her last fight, she just got absolutely blasted by Poliana Botello and knocked out with a body kick 30 seconds into the fight. She does have 1 win over Chi Mis Jun in her UFC fight before that, but she's fought very low-level competition and, has some wins over them. And, she's a regional girl, Japanese girl. But I really think that Yan, the Chinese fighter, is going to have a pretty nice, comfortable decision in this one, which is why people bet her down to -450, and Kondo is up to +360 in this one. So, expecting a pretty one-sided performance from Yan Zayuan there. And sorry, Miss Zayuan, I know you're listening right now, and I know my pronunciation is not on point, so I'll make it up to you a different way. Next fight in the bantamweight division, we have Pingyuan Liu, who is 14-4, taking on Martin Day, who is 9-2. The betting lines for this one opened up. Pingyuan Liu opened up -285. Martin Day at +205. Line margins have tightened up a little bit with Pingyuan at -230 and Martin Day at +190. Martin Day is making his UFC debut in this one. I feel like he was on The Ultimate Fighter, but I do not see any mention of that on his Tapology page, so I guess he wasn't. He has most wins of his wins are over very low level competition guys with no wins or a few fights, 1-4. So that's never a good thing to see. Pingyuan Lee is a pretty well established guy in the UFC. I believe he only has 1 fight, but he looked pretty good in his fight against Damian Stasiak. Won a decision in that one. Striking looked pretty crisp. It's another guy. A lot of his wins were over low-level competition, and I was kind of, fading him last fight, thinking Stasiak would win this one. But, he looked very, very improved. Did take about a year off in between his last fight, and I'm telling you, man, he improved a lot in that one. So, don't really have a full grasp of Martin Day in this one, so I can't call it too accurately. But I would have Pingyuan as the favorite, just considering that this guy is not fought high level competition. He is American, coming over to China. He one thing you gotta think about is this guy has never fought in the UFC before. He's got to be pretty restricted financially in terms of getting a good coach, flying his coach to China, flying out early so he doesn't have jet lag. The UFC probably just gives you two tickets for 7 days before the event. But if you really want to get out there and get adjusted to, however many, the 14-hour flight, or get adjusted to the air in Beijing or whatnot, you're going to have to be taking that money out of your own pocket, which I doubt this guy can afford to do. So you gotta favor the Chinese fighter in his hometown, the guy who has a little bit of UFC experience and is looking pretty good. So I would expect Pingyuan to get the win in this one, but I have not studied much on Martin Day to be confident in this one. Next fight in the women's strawweight division, we have Jessica Aguilar, who is 20-6, taking on Willie Zhang, who is 17-1. Betting lines for this one opened up at Willie Zhang at -175 and Jessica Aguilar at +135. A lot of money has been coming on Zhang to -470, Jessica Aguilar to +375. So massive money coming in on Zhang. She did have a little bit of an underwhelming performance in her UFC debut, I believe. That fight against Danielle Taylor, we expected her to be a little more dominant than she was, but I think that she didn't really push the pace as much as she did in her previous fights in that one. Her previous, out of her 17 wins, she only has, 2 wins by decision. So, 16 finishes coming in, or 15 finishes coming into that one, or whatever. And she did not get the finish in her UFC debut like a lot of us were expecting. But she still did look, good in that one. Her striking, her output looked on point. And, Jessica Aguilar has struggled a bit in the UFC. She was I believe a 105 pounder in Invicta. No, I'm thinking of a different girl. I don't know who the hell I'm thinking of. No, she was 105. She definitely was 105 at one point. She's, 5'3", 63-inch reach. She kind of struggles even with the 115-pound girls. She also hasn't fought too easy competition at all. Claudia Gadelha, Courtney Casey, both massive strawweights. And picking up a win in her last fight over Jodie Escobedo. Not the highest level opponent in this one. So, unfortunately, the cards are stacked up against Jag in this one. I think Zhang was pretty favored to get the win in this one in her home country. And I expect this one to probably go to the cards and Zhang to win decisively. So, next fight in the light heavyweight division, we have Rashad Coulter, who is 8-4, taking on Yao Tsung Hu, who is 3-1. Rashad Coulter opened up in this one as the -245 favorite to Hu Zhaozong at +175. Now, a lot of money has come in on Zhaozong, considering that a lot of people just don't trust Rashad Coulter as a favorite at all. He's gotten, probably one of the worst cardio in the UFC. He's dropping down to light heavyweight in this one. Hopefully, maybe that improves his cardio a little bit, but he's 0-3 in the UFC so far. He's gotten finished in all 3 fights. By Chase Sherman of all people and Chris De La Rocha of all people, just low level. He got absolutely blasted by Chris De La Rocha in his last fight too. But then his opponent Yao Tsung Hu also, only 4 fights in the UFC. He 2 of his wins are over guys with 0 wins. He doesn't have a win over a guy with a winning record, and he also lost to Cyril Asker in his first fight, who is just, again, bottom of the barrel skill level in the UFC as far as he gets. So, I've seen a lot of people talking about this fight, arguing, who's gonna gas first and who sucks more. Dude, if they both suck, just watch and all. Just watch these guys swing it out and go down quick. Don't feel the need to bet. I've seen so many motherfuckers betting on this fight, talking back and forth about who's going to go down first and who sucks worse and whose gas tank sucks worse. It's like, how about you just take the fight off and just watch these 2 bums battle it out? No. I gotta throw the bankroll on one of these guys, right? But that's where, I don't know. That's where I differ from some people. So next one we're going on. We have Yana Wu taking on Lauren Mueller. Lauren Mueller is 5-0 in this one. Yana Wu is 8-2. Now, unlike the other matchups, the Chinese fighter is a massive underdog in this one. Lauren Mueller opened up -380. Wu at +260. Lauren Mueller is up to -410. Wu up to +330. So even more action coming in on Mueller in this one. I get it, man. Mueller is looking really good in the UFC so far. Like I said, she's coming off of I believe the Ultimate Fighter, and she also has wins over Shayna Dobes. Oh no, she came off of a Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. That's right. Wins over this Kelly Velasco in the Tuesday Night Contender Series and Shayna Dobes in her first UFC fight. She's got, good boxing, good head movement. She's, looking pretty sharp on the feet so far. But, trusting her at -400, man, I don't know. Again, 3 of her wins are over girls with no pro fights. No pro fights. Gladiator Challenge is a massive, massive red flag. That promotion is just a complete sheep promotion. So, I expect Lauren Mueller to get the win in this one. Although, like I said, I do not know much about Miss Wu in this one. Again, man, holy shit! I've never seen a fight card this much with fighters with wins over no fights. Man, she had 6 of her wins. Wait, maybe even more than that. 7 of her wins are over fighters with no professional wins. That's terrible, man. She's lost to Yana Kunitskaya and Gina Manze, the 2 only women with a little bit of experience in this one. So any experience on the side of her opponent doesn't seem to fare too well for her. So I imagine Mueller will get the win in this one. Next fight we have in the welterweight division, Alex Morono, who is 14-5, taking on Keenan Song, who is 14-4. Alex Morono opened up as the plus 145 underdog in this one to Keenan Song at minus 185. The betting line currently stands at Alex Morono minus 110, Keenan Song minus 110. So a pick'em fight now. A lot of money coming in on Alex Morono. I think it's justified, man. This one is really a pick'em. It's going to be close. We've seen Keenan Song, pick up 2 wins in the UFC so far, but both 2 knockouts over, pretty legitimate guys with decent chins too. Bobby Nash and Hector Aldana. We just saw Hector Aldana eat some massive shots in this last fight and didn't go down. So, that shows Keenan Song's striking is even better. He has a little bit better wins over regional competition than some of the other Chinese fighters on this card. So that's good to see as well. But, Morono has a lot more UFC experience. He can really grind fights out. He's got a good pace, good cardio, is able to, level change a lot. His chin is not the best. He has gotten knocked out by Nico Price, but I believe that's his only knockout loss. No, it's not. Diego Henrique also knocked him out in 2014. But his chin is pretty good. His last win was over Josh Berkman, not the greatest win. He hasn't really picked up a win over an active UFC fighter in a long time. I don't think he has a win over an active UFC fighter. So that's why maybe the betting line opened up a little wide for this one. But man, I think that despite that, I think Morono will still bring it and have a pretty grinding type fight. So I don't really have a clear prediction on this one, but all I know is it's going to be a close decision. Moving on to the main card in this one, 4 main card fights, starting off with the Leech, Li Jingliang, who is 15-5, taking on David Zawada, who is 16-4. The betting line for this one opened up Li Jingliang as the minus 215 favorite to David Zawada as the plus 165 underdog. And now a little bit of money coming in on Zawada in this one. Jingliang is down to minus 185, Zawada up to plus 160. So little bit of line movement coming in Zawada's way. I don't disagree with it. I mean, he is a very competent striker, but Li Jingliang is just polished, man. He's good. He's a winner. He's 15-5, 5-1 in his last 6 fights. He's beaten good competition. Bobby Nash, Frank Camacho, Zach Otto, Daiichi Abe. Only slip up coming to Jake Matthews in a really improved looking Jake Matthews, who was just taking him down in that fight. So Jingliang's weakness is going to be the ground game for sure, but Zawada not really known for his ground game at all. He's a pretty unorthodox, powerful striker. He leaps in a lot and throws pretty crazy combinations. He's got a lot of good experience in KSW, a lot of good regional experience. But he came up a little bit short in his debut against Danny Roberts. He looked deserving in there. He definitely looked like he deserves to be in the UFC. He hit Roberts with some good punches in that one, but ultimately came up a little bit short on the output aspect of things. But I think Jingliang will win a decision in this one. Maybe even clip Zawada and knock him out if Zawada leaps in with a crazy combination. Jingliang has got good counter punching. He's got great leg kicks. He's looking a lot more improved. He would just come out and throw bombs and look for the knockout in his past couple fights, but in his most recent fight, he looked really polished. Looked like he took his time and he picked his opponent apart at range and got the decision victory over Daiichi Abe. So the pick is going to be Jingliang to get this one, and man, at the price of 185, man, I almost kind of like Li Jingliang. So if anybody has a play on him, I don't disagree with it at all. I would be really shocked if Zawada beat him. Next fight in the bantamweight division, we have Song Yadong, who is 13-4, taking on Vince Morales, who is 8-2. Song Yadong opened up as the minus 365 favorite. Vince Morales up to plus 255. And people are betting down Song Yadong to minus 460. Vince Morales up to plus 365. So, man, I don't know if I agree with this one. Like I said, Vince Morales is one of the gentlemen who I've not got the opportunity to study too much. Song Yadong does have 2 wins in the UFC so far, both wins by finish. He's looked good, man. He beaten Felipe Arantes, man. He looked really good in that fight. And he does have a little bit better regional experience, regional wins than most of the Chinese competition on the card. But let's give Vince Morales a look to see how he's looking. I really haven't looked over this guy much at all. He lost on the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, and then picked up a win in Bellator, and then he's now brought back into the UFC for this one. So definitely short notice for him. Definitely like, hey man, I know we didn't sign you before, but how would you like to fight in Beijing, man? 14-hour fight. There's smog in the air. You can't even breathe the air, and you're fighting a prospect who may or may not be 20 years old. There's some heavy speculation over the age of Song Yadong. So, not just looking at, like I said, wiki capping from this one. Vince Morales has, wins in Bellator, wins over, decent competition, but I think he is fighting on someone who's a bit special in this one, Song Yadong. His age says 20 on his fighter profile, but there's some speculation that he's a little bit older than that. But there's also some speculation that he had to lie about his age in his first couple fights in order to fight. He was fighting his first pro fight at 16 allegedly, and they had to lie about his age so he could fight professionally. But who the hell knows? That's beside the point. He looks super, super powerful, quick, good striker, good chokes as well too. So I imagine that wherever the fight goes in this one, Song Yadong will be comfortable. Vince Morales will really have to, rock him or make him uncomfortable on the ground to get a win in this one. In the co-main event of the evening, we have Alistair Overeem, who is 43-17, taking on Sergey Pavlovich, who is 12-0. Alistair Overeem opened up as the minus 135 favorite in this one to Sergey Pavlovich as the underdog at minus 105. Right away, Pavlovich was bet down to a pretty heavy favorite, surprisingly. Let me see what the highest he got was. Let's see, checking over. He got, man, yeah, he shot up to plus 150 for a while, but then there's been some steady action coming in on Sergey Pavlovich. He's now down to minus 130. That's actually the steepest that his line has been right now. This is shocking, man. A guy coming in, making his UFC debut against one of the most established, experienced heavyweights of all time in Alistair Overeem. It's a tough test to tackle, I can tell you that. He trains out of the Dagestani Eagles MMA. He's fought in Fight Night Global. He's beaten really good competition over there. They do not sugarcoat at all. They give you fucking killers in Fight Nights Global, and he's gone through all of them. He's got a little bit of power, and he obviously has a great wrestling base to go back on. So I think people are relying on the wrestling base in this one. If he chooses to take this fight down to the ground, I think that he will have some success against Overeem. Obviously, that's the blueprint to beat Overeem. Curtis Blades just did it and, pounded his ass out with elbows, slicing him up in an absolutely brutal finish. So if Pavlovich tries to recreate that game plan, go with heavy takedowns and ground and pound, then I can see him picking up the win over Alistair in this one. But if he chooses to strike with Alistair in this one, I think Alistair will pick him apart and get the win in this one. So, like I said, if it's on the feet, Overeem. If it goes to the ground, Pavlovich. Not too in-depth analysis there. And in the main event, we are having a rematch between Curtis Blades, who is 10-1, and Francis Ngannou, who is 11-3. Curtis Blades opened up as the plus 115 underdog in this one. Man, that was a gift of a line. Francis Ngannou opened up at minus 155. I would like to meet the odds maker who opened up that line, because he must have been drunk as a skunk. Open up Francis Ngannou as a favorite after his last fight. Man, that's a bold move, let me tell you. The line has since completely flipped. Curtis Blades is down to a minus 235 favorite. Francis Ngannou up to plus 195. Francis Ngannou is obviously, a terrifying striker, a terrifying power puncher, but he is, there's no doubt he's changed a little bit. He was ultra aggressive, ultra confident going into his fight with Stipe Miocic, where he was just totally just outclassed in that one. He was out wrestled. He was just beaten decisively, let's say. And and also had his fight against Derek Lewis, where he looked more tentative than any fighter has ever in the UFC, arguably, and lost the decision in that one. He's just completely changed. His ego, his aggression, his confidence seems to be gone. On the other hand, Curtis Blaydes is picking up wins left and right. He beat Mark Hunt. He beat Alistair Overeem. He beat Alexei Olenek. Man, this dude is just fucking people up. Ever since his loss to Francis Ngannou, he has finished, Adam Milstead, no contest. He has finished three out of his 5 wins. He beat Mark Hunt. He took Mark Hunt's biggest shot in that one and ate it for breakfast and took him down. And like I said, he sliced Alistair Overeem up with some absolutely disgusting elbows. So I think the two fighters have gone in completely different directions since their last fight. Obviously, Francis Ngannou picked up a few more wins after his after their first fight, and then ultimately started his descend, his fall from grace after the Stipe Miocic fight. But Blaydes has just looked better and better and better. He's looked good on the feet. He's looked absolutely killer with the takedowns. The only way that I can see Francis Ngannou winning this fight is if he sticks to his game plan of striking southpaw. Curtis Blaydes had a lot of trouble taking him down in southpaw in their first fight. And just if that confidence is back for Ngannou, because if it's not, man, it's going to be hard for him to get a win over Curtis Blaydes in this one. So again, like I said, I unfortunately did not do too much in-depth analysis for this fight card, so excuse myself for the lackluster analysis in this one. But I will be back next week for UFC Fight Night. Oh no, it's a tough finale next week. So I'll be back for that card with hopefully some more better in-depth analysis for you guys. And but thank you for tuning in anyway. This has been episode 41 of the Martian MMA podcast. And ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, aliens, Martians, any conscious being, thank you for tuning into the podcast. Happy Thanksgiving to all my American folks, and I will catch you guys next week. Peace.